Yo, 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 it's Our Lifestyle, the podcast, and I'm your co-host and producer, Jason ODB. We recently dropped an intro to what we will be doing with this series on our YouTube channel going forward. There's a link in the description if you want to check it out. Now, this is our first full flip through that we're doing, and we're starting with the first issue of Mini Truckin magazine that I own. Now, there was one issue dropped in 1988, and then there was the 1989, what they refer to as the winter issue, which was technically volume 2, issue 1. And then we fast forward to this issue, which is spring of 89. Technically, it's volume 3, issue number 1. And if you happen to have this issue or you remember reading it, you'll know that Steve Stillwell talks a little bit about the weird numbering system they had early on. But in this issue, you have about 87 pages. The cover was shot by Alan Paradise. And you have, looks like about 6 features overall. You had Raw Deal in Flying First Class on the cover. You can kind of see there's a roller coaster in the background. If you look here, you have like an old school Toyota accessory company on the back. But this is, again, the first issue that I own. My collection is over 90% complete. And we will be going through eventually every one of these issues. So, without further ado, let's jump right into our Flip Through series. All right, so as we jump in here, you're going to see, again, it's the spring of 89 issue, kind of a classic, what we refer to as a multi-truck cover, Raw Deal. You see that on the front license plate of the badass old school Mini. Now, some of you that have been reading the magazine a very long time, you'll remember that this is not, the magazine's not upside down. This ad was actually upside down, and I guess it was to try to get your attention to flip it around, if you will, flip the magazine over. So here you have high-tech engraving. So that was something that was reminiscent of the time period. You'll see on this page 5, you have publisher Tom McMullen. So you'll recall that many of you will recall McMullen Publishing. You had the editorial director, Bob Clark, and then the editor, which is really the key here, is Steve Stillwell. Staff feature editor was Alan Paradise. You'll also note that the magazine is in black and white. Yes, believe it or not, this magazine was black and white all the way up until they went with more color, and then they eventually went to all color in the 2000s, believe it or not. It was a long time. But you see the old school Mini Truckin logo there, and you had the nice layout in terms of all the different trucks, including Raw Deal. You see there is listed on page 36. So Mini Truckin performance. You'll recall that the mini trucks really kind of came out of the van days, and with the high prices of gas in the 70s and things like that, the mini trucks were a way for people to get around, especially younger folks and kids, if you will, of the era. And of course, they wanted to, add some high performance to their mini trucks. So here's the Mini Truckin editorial. I hinted at this, and you'll see I have some really helpful tips for mini truckers who are in the process of customizing their trucks. However, before I do that, I'd like to clear up some loose ends. Steve Stillwell goes on to say, and he talks about the numbering system. Yes. So I was talking with a homie recently, and he has this issue. He was a little confused, as I was some years ago, and I told him, you know what, the answer is right there if you check it out. And sure enough, he's like, wow, it was literally right under my nose, and there it is. For those that kind of want to know over here, the reason for the wacky numbering system that I kind of hinted at. Again, you had one issue in 88, and that was the premiere issue. And then in 1989, you had the winter issue. So if you think about that as the first season, I guess, of the year, so to speak, and that was volume 2. And then for whatever reason, you would think that spring would stay volume 2 because that's the second year, but again, Stillwell covers on that here. So European style ground effects, mini market. So this is something that really carried on throughout the magazine, and it does today with many different published magazines where they talk about new and upcoming products. Bullet style effects. And check this out, you see right here, you have the what I refer to as like a cab visor. Those are pretty hot today for the C30 trucks. I'm really a big fan of. So paper cuts, mini news briefs. So again, kind of showing some of the different truck series, off-road series there. The Bug Hut now carries mini truck accessories. 1989 Isuzu Amigo. So I actually owned one of these. One of my best friends, John, I bought his Amigo after he was done with it, and really don't have any pictures of me owning it, believe it or not. But he's got a few old gems. His was a purple Amigo, and you see here, I think some forget, and I did as well, that this was a 1989 model. I forget the year that I had, the year that we owned, if it was a 93, but they had a pretty good run that actually started in the 80s. Also, not sure if you guys remember these, the magazine binders. I've seen a few old school mini truckers that actually have these, and you could purchase those for $7 and then organize your magazines. Fantasy trucks, the result of one average mini trucker's dream, we think. So this kind of kicked off, at least in this issue. Going forward, they had folks that submitted different drawings, and you see down here, send the entries over to La Palma Avenue in Anaheim. Yo, Mike. So Mike Shartsis, he's been over here on this side. He's been a guest on the podcast before. Welcome back to California A. And he kind of says, hey dudes, you remember my letter from November's Trucking zine? Cool. Well, the boys at Truckin said, hey bro, why don't you come out Disneyland way and join the staff of Mini Truckin? So it kind of talks about his introduction to the magazine. Here you've got, again, the marketing piece. You could buy a shirt. Mini Truck t-shirts are now in stock. It was only $9.95 each. I think if we had a time machine, we'd love to go back and pick those, buy as many of those as we could. I've seen some old school Mini Truckin shirts sell on eBay for a good bit. Right here you have Brilliant Disguise. This was shot by Alan Paradise. It was Cindy's truck in Hayward, California, an 86 Dodge Ram 50, and this is one of the features that I kind of mentioned there in the overview of this issue. You also have Audio Chamber. These were classic ads of the time period. I've even seen, I think, some people in Japan kind of recreate these ads, especially with the logo on the back window. You'll see that although it was a color feature, it did flip over here to black and white. That was because of the cost overall of printing in color. They just, it wasn't a part of, who knows, I don't think really any magazines at the time were all color. So a tech article, which continued throughout Mini Truckin magazine all through the years. And then Biggity Boom, Summer Anxiety. This was shot by Alan Paradise. And you can see just the differences in style. What's pretty cool is you're seeing a lot of clubs in California, and you've got the Tilt Bed Evolution crew on Facebook with Jamie, I believe his name is. You see the tilt beds, they're what we say is on the rise, making a comeback. You see the hairstyles and just the colors. Much of that is also coming back full circle. But this was a standard of the magazine, of course, showing the different events throughout the country and eventually throughout the world. And you had the club games, which is still kind of a thing that some of the old school shows do. Dropping the Ranger, tech article. And Raw Deal, the famous 82 Toyota SR5. This is a classic truck, and when you look at it, it's a full show truck. It really captures a lot of what the kind of the 70s interior into the 80s, and then of course being one of the first cover trucks definitely adds to the mystique of this badass mini truck. Mini's on the rise, rocking some wire wheels. Okay, Stillen Suspension Secrets. Stillen was a company that was tied to Mini Truckin even from the beginning, as you can see. And this was a tech article. And it's amazing, before the internet, tech articles were really how a lot of us learned how to do different things. Okay, Flying First Class. Again, when I introed this issue, talked about this one. You'll see it's a 1980 Toyota 4x4, and it reinforces. If you looked at, or if you were a subscriber or you own any of the Truckin magazine issues in the 80s, you'll see there was a big influence of Mini Truckin, which included the lifted trucks as well. Team Rad is on the front license plate. And of course on the back paint, rear bedside, it said RADD Rad 1. Now, if you listen to the podcast, you'll know that we're big fans of the movie Rad. I am. And behind me is some of the few things that I have that I've collected. We recently had Bill Allen on, so just another reason why you want to check out our lifestyle podcast. We have a heavy influence, as I mentioned in the introduction, of not only Mini Truckin magazine, but of the 80s, 90s culture, hip hop, skateboarding, old school BMX, you name it. So a couple of the old ads. Again, check this out. The power source says crank it or yank it. Car audio featuring CDs, cassettes, amps, equalizers, speakers. And you can see some of the old school throwback prices there. Okay, now when I did some of the data analysis of these issues, I didn't, at least in the overall features, bake in the Mini Truckin marquee. This stayed around for some time and kind of morphed into other pieces as the magazine continued on. But I've mentioned, and I posted this before, this, because I don't have issue 1 and 2, quite possibly might be the first time, rest in peace Courtney Halliwell, the first time that his truck appeared in the magazine. 87 Mazda, this has been shared many times, and if you check the hashtag RIP Courtney Halliwell, that's Hallowell, he was the founder of Negative Camber, and he is a legend, and this again was more than likely his first image in a print magazine. So you see some of the features, and kind of what they did here from what I could tell is ramping up, talking to Mike Shartsis and some of the old magazine editors, they had to obviously get a lot of content. This gave them an opportunity. You see here 4 feature vehicles, and at the time Courtney was flying Class Act. Now it dumped over to the black and white side of the feature. Of course, this was a tech article that I think over the years was probably kind of a simple one that adds some content. It was detailing for show. Yo Mike was continued here from early on, from the Mike Shartsis write-up. And then you have here Detroit S10. I don't know if Detroit would want to claim that today, but I would tell you that would be a hit at shows today because of the colors and, of course, just the styles. It's crazy how maybe in the 90s we would have maybe laughed at something like this and kind of said, it's not cool, it's not low enough, it's not this, it's not that. But again, you're seeing these old school trucks pop up. I think if this 88 S10 were to come out today, it would be kind of nuts. Samurai Fever. And again, this one was a black and white in the beginning, and then it flips over to the color. This 88 and 86 Isuzu Samurais, kind of the pair. What's kind of cool is for those that are NWA fans, you'll remember that in the early days of NWA, Ice Cube and I think Easy and a few of the guys, they had these as well. And there's a cool photo shoot that they did early on, which I think some of those photos may have made it to the first NWA and the Posse cover for the vinyl and the CD. So Mini Truckin, imagine this. Now, there's a homie down south that sells Mini Truckin magazines. You can find him on Instagram. He actually had some of these original Mini Truckin magazine stickers. Now he has reprints, and apparently I have one of the original ones, which is my understanding. Again, if we had time machines, we'd probably go back and buy hundreds of these. I mean, look at them. They were only $1 for 2 stickers, along with you would have to send, back in the day, you guys will remember self-addressed stamped envelopes, if you can remember that. Then, of course, you had Truckin, which Mini Truckin was a spin-off of Truckin magazine, much like TV shows or spin-offs. Some of you guys will know Breaking Bad, so the perfect spin-off there was Better Call Saul, and that's what Mini Truckin magazine was. We had Brian McCormick on the podcast, and he talked a little bit about the infancy of the magazine. What's Up Doc, 81 Volkswagen pickup, so something very different, but was something, this was a vehicle that kind of captures the times of the 80s going into the 90s. Some more ads, mini sketch pad. So this was kind of the submissions for the readers, if you will. Kind of talked about it earlier. In some publications, including Mini Truckin, they had staff and they had different artists they partnered with, and then they would use their artwork. But it was pretty neat that they would allow for you to send in your artwork. Imagine being a young kid at the time, or possibly a teenager, and they ran your stuff in a magazine. That would be pretty cool. Mini Truckin Club Directory. This was a way for the clubs to provide their information. I mean, imagine having your phone number and or address in a national publication back in the day. Many folks use P.O. boxes, of course, but this is the early way that people were able to find out and make phone calls and potentially expand truck club chapters. So some more, as you get towards the back of any magazine, you're going to have the ads, and those ads helped support the magazine overall in terms of some of the costs. Toyota engine chrome kit, again, probably an easier tech article, but was good content for them to fill, and people enjoyed it. Riding around, that also expanded upon the artwork that could be submitted. This was carried all the way till the end of the magazine, and it essentially allowed for you to send in a photo of your vehicle with a little write-up. And again, it kind of goes back to, imagine having your vehicle, especially if you were on the East Coast and you didn't ever think that your truck would be featured. This was a way for them to kind of, gain subscribers and be like, wow, look, my truck was in here. And potentially, you'd go out and buy as many issues as you could because your truck was in it. Mild to wild accessories. So this is one that you'll remember if you're an old school reader of the magazine. And then boom, become a winner. Subscribe to Truckin. This was some cross promotions they did, mostly because of, again, they were sister publications, so to speak. And you can see this wasn't filled out, but send my subscription to Truckin. 12 issues for $20.95. What's pretty cool is even today, if you read truck magazines, including one of our sponsors, All Time Low magazine, you can visit atlmagazine.com and subscribe. But the prices really haven't went up for national publications, but some of the homegrown magazines like All Time Low, there's a higher cost for them, so you would obviously pay a little bit more. But for national publications, you would be surprised that this $20 to $30 price range for 12 issues is almost still a thing. Okay, and then here, so I apologize for some of the lighting here. We're going to do our best we can with these videos. I think hopefully you guys will appreciate the content. You have now available the ultimate conversion, and you had basically the hard top here, and then you had the soft top. There's a couple epic trucks, including a Nissan, that's still around today that was recently featured in All Time Low magazine, and it had one of these soft tops on it. Really reminiscent of the days, but it has a modern look of the mini truck. So this was a famous truck. I think someone sent me a photo the other day that this someone has this truck now, if I remember correctly. And then of course the back cover that I mentioned a little bit earlier ago. So there you have it. You basically have issue number 3 of Mini Truckin magazine. This one's in really good condition. I will note that the magazines of the era, you'll see where, based upon where the staple was at, you have to be really careful. If you stack these in a certain way, you'll end up, eventually all the magazines will, the weight of them, if you will kind of push on this thing enough, and you'll see where the cover, including the back cover, will just simply rip off. So you got to be real careful. What I've done with a lot of the early issues, again, don't have 88 or the winter 89, but with a lot of these early issues, I have them in these nice little sleeves to keep some extra care for these magazines. But give us a thumbs up. If you want to see something different or additional facts, let us know. But we're going to be bringing a lot of content to you guys here on YouTube. Please go out, click the link in our bio. If you have an Apple iOS device, such as an iPhone or an Android device, you can easily listen. With Apple, just simply go to the pre-installed podcasts app. It's a purple icon, and search Our Lifestyle Podcast. If you're on Android, you can download Podbean. It's a free app. You set up a free account. It only takes a couple of minutes, and then you just search Our Lifestyle Podcast. You can also find us on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, so on and so forth. You can often just search OLP and find us. So appreciate you guys watching. Check our channel out, subscribe, and tap on the bell icon so you'll be notified when we launch and post new videos. ODB, we out you. Mini Truckin on the rise. Peace.